Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Don't Risk It podcast presented by VFIS Client Risk Solutions. This program focuses on the exposures our clients frequently encounter and discusses some potential solutions to help reduce these exposures. I'm your host, Chris Rodgers with VFIS Client Risk Solutions, and today we're discussing peer support in emergency services. Joining me on the program today is Reid, and Derek is a battalion chief for Truckee Meadows Fire and Rescue, and he is also the founder of the Nevada Peer Support Network. Chief Reid is joining us today to discuss the Peer Support Network and the services they provide to support the mental health of emergency service providers. Derek, I want to thank you for joining me today, and I really appreciate your time.
Well, I appreciate your time and, allowing me to share, what we have and what we've done with the Nevada Peer Support Network. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. We're excited to get to hear your story. So when was the organization established and what were some of the deciding factors in getting started?
So Nevada Peer Support, the nonprofit, the 501c3 was established in 2019, October to be specific. A month, probably 2 months before that, the epicenter of the idea, unfortunately, was on the tail end of a tragedy that we had with Truckee Meadows Fire. It was a loss of one of our own members, our own firefighters, and his name was Tyler Ewald. Tyler decided to take his life, and no one saw it coming. He absolutely was, he was a stand-up firefighter. He was a hotshot. He won an award for, when he was a hotshot. He was a top-notch firefighter, and he came from a top-notch family. I worked with his father at Reno Fire. His father, John Ewald, was a captain and a well-respected one at that. So when he took his own life, our department you can imagine we were just in shock. We've never had anything happen like that before. We were really trying to figure out how to, grieve, and there was a lot of confusions, and like most suicides, there was the big question of why, and nobody knew why. There was no signs. Being the leader of the peer support group with my department for 3 days, because he did survive 3 days in the hospital in the ICU before he was pronounced brain dead, and then that's when they decided to cease any kind of extraordinary measures. So that was really difficult. A month later, down in Las Vegas, Henderson, they lost one of their firefighters to suicide, and I decided to make a phone call and reach out to their union president and say, we just went through this. I don't know what it is that we can do, but we're here for you. And his next statement is a statement that I made several times during the postvention efforts of Tyler was, I don't even know who to call. I don't know who can help us with this, because we're 911. We're the fire department. When things go bad, they call us, right? But now something bad happened to us, and we had no idea who our support mechanisms were to help us through it. That weren't general pop, psychologists and chaplains, and we only had ourselves because we were a warrior culture. It happened on the battleground, if you will. So after talking to that union president in Vegas, he says, I don't even know who to call. And it was at that moment that I realized, you know what, we need to figure out how to help each other and how to come together as a warrior culture. And that includes law enforcement. That includes EMS. Obviously we're in the fire branch, but it also included military personnel. So the way that it was formed was that minute, that day, that hour, I reached out to about 13 people and said, you know what, we can do this better. I want to meet with all these different organizations, these service branches, and figure out how we can form a coalition or a partnership or a network to where we can share the resources that we have for this kind of thing. And everybody had something. It just, there were parts here and there, and we were all siloed. So in October, we had a meeting. I booked a classroom of about 15. It turned out to be more than 80 people showed up. We had to change the room from a small classroom to an auditorium at the training center. And we proposed a website to start off with, to and create a nonprofit and figure out what those resources are that first responders can reach out to, or those resources reach out to. And, there's reaching in and there's reaching out, to create an infrastructure of like a one stop, like, hey, this person's struggling. We don't know what we need. I don't know who to call. Again, it goes back to that. We wanted a variety of resources because we're all different, even though that we're all in the same warrior culture. So that's how the Peer Support Network was built. It was built within the concept of, within unity we find strength. It was within diversity of resources, mechanisms of support for not only the members, but the families. And that basically was a bookshelf, i.e. a website that had different tabs for different things, and you name it, PTSD, relationships, family, marital support, finances. We even had a recommended library within the website that had different books. That is a mechanism. Some people don't want to be public, so they're like, oh, well, I'll read a book. And it doesn't solve the problem, but it definitely sparks ideas and ways and pathways, flow paths of healing, through grief and whatever the issue is, drugs, alcohol, you name it. Our industry is plagued with numbing mechanisms that usually lead to some form of rough times in life.
And often, people in your line of work, they're very happy to run into a burning building, or help someone else, in a medical situation or whatnot. But they're always not the first to ask for help, or go see the doctor if they're feeling, feeling something. So it's awesome that you started this program to give them an awareness that, hey, we're here if you need us. Don't be shy, and let us know if you need help.
Yeah, well, it's normalizing what we've stigmatized so badly because of the warrior culture mentality. It really rings true when I see, like movies of Soul Survivor, like in the Navy SEAL in Afghanistan, where they're on the hill and they're overwhelmed in numbers, and they're getting shot at, and then the whole time they're like, you good? I'm good. One's got a broken leg or can't see. And it's like, they're always good. You ask a first responder at any given time, no matter how bad things are, hey, how you doing? Standard answer is, I'm good, even if they're not good. And the reason is because it's a warrior culture. We do not want to let our comrades down. We want to be that strong, entity within the team. And to say you're not okay means that there's a weak link, and you're that weak link.
And I don't think it's the right perception, but somebody might feel that they're displaying a weakness if they're asking for help. I don't agree with that, but that is a mindset that some people might have.
It's a hard concept to translate, that, hey, vulnerability is strength. Nobody wants to be taken out of the game, that's a warrior culture. You look at football, you look at any of these sports, and they're like, no, I'm going to stay. I don't want to come out. They're going to go to the bitter end. And we have a tendency, and you can call it what you want. The general pop will, call it, they'll stigmatize it, like, oh, you're just, it's a macho mentality. It's like, no, we're here to play. We are top-notch players, and the public expects that of us. They don't see us as human; they see us as heroes, and that's a tough one to get over. And when you do that for a career, and then you retire and you've lost that kind of badge of honor of being somebody's, hero, or that's why one of our focuses is retirees, because they lose their purpose, and their purpose is huge. It's public safety. It's coming to the rescue. It's this honor that we have as first responders to serve at the highest level, and then all of a sudden you're not doing that anymore.
And they had that camaraderie too from going to the station and having having their crew, and then they retire, and then that's wiped out, and it's very hard to replace.
It's a tribe mentality, 100%. And you lose your tribe, you lose the people that you've been through some pretty nasty calls with, and organically you've supported one another after those calls, during those calls. And then all of a sudden you know, they're trying to find purpose again in life, where, like I said, they served at the highest level. And now it's like, well, now what? One of our programs is specifically designed for that reunification of that tribe, and it works. So I can talk about that later, but these individuals that used to be firefighters, law enforcement, military, are now serving those that serve by showing up to incidents with um, legitimate rehabilitation equipment for post fires, SWAT standbys, trainings that go all day for days, live fire trainings, and they're there to serve. And this is handing out nutrition and hydration, and environments that create a cool environment, or warming environment through heaters and misters and all kinds of stuff, mechanisms to lower body temperature rapidly. They have found new purpose and significance in being a warrior servant.
That's great to hear. Well, this definitely, I was looking at your website, and it's a very robust site with a lot of resources, and that's something that you probably didn't undertake alone. So can you talk about some of the partner agencies that assisted in developing the network?
Yeah. So, like I said, our within Unity we find strength. That is our kind of hashtag, or whatever you want to call it. You can't do it alone. It takes a village, right? So, to be relevant, it has to be relatable in the sense of, law enforcement has to be represented, EMS, fire. We have a lot of crossover between EMS and fire, because a lot of people go from EMS and then they go into fire, or they were in law enforcement, or, it's kind of a light group in that sense, but they're very individual in culture, very specified in culture. So what we did was, yeah, we're unified, but we respect those boundaries to where, well, you don't see and understand what I do as a law enforcement. It's like, understood. And as a firefighter, we can say the same thing. EMS, we can say the same thing. So the unity comes within just understanding that when a a suicide or something, a big boom within an organization happens, no matter how robust your support group is, your peer support team is, everybody's affected in that organization, because everybody knew that person, and now they're affected. One law enforcement group here in Reno, they call it, you're contaminated. That's their descriptor, but what that basically means is you need outside resources within that network to come and support. And I'll give you an example. We had a fixed wing crash with the ambulance company that's also the air medical transport company here in Reno, and they lost members on that flight, and the plane came crashing down in another county nearby, and they were stunned. They were grief stricken, and it took all the other agencies to come together and go, okay, we're going to take care of this. We're going to We're going to find a centralized location of their choice, and we're going to bring food. We're going to bring counselors that are culturally competent and trauma informed. We're going to bring, chaplains. We're going to bring anything and everything that we already have on our bookcase, as I mentioned before, and we're going to organize it. So anybody that's ever had a tragedy in their organization, they know that they're going to be overwhelmed with support resources, almost to the point to where it's like, okay, this is too much. I can't deal with this right now. It needs to be organized like ICS. It needs the organization for the support mechanism has to meet the size and the complexity and fit the need, serve the need. But it can't be too much and it can't be too little, and it absolutely has to be organized. And if it's not organized, it's just a mess of people wanting to help, and that in itself can be a burden. So that's the peer support network goes, okay, they come in, they're kind of like, I don't want to mention any government agencies, but basically what we do is we provide that ebb and flow of support resources. And it can be financial, it could be emotional, it can be relational, it can be all kinds of different things.
So does the peer support network directly provide these support services, or do you reach out to outside professional services, social services, things in the in your area that can help this individual out?
Okay, so some, yes, most we outreach, and it goes back to that same thing I mentioned in the beginning, is we don't even know who to call. Well, the peer support network has made it its business to know who to call. If somebody needs a counselor, we have vetted counselors that we know that are culturally competent and trauma informed, and we can hook them up with somebody that's not going to ask them the first 10 sessions, tell me about your job. They already know the job and they understand it. They know that we do shift work. They know the difference between a truck and an engine and a ladder truck, and they understand this. Other resources, the chaplain group. The chaplain group is a more of a Gen Pop type chaplain group. However, that chaplain group has first responders embedded within it, so we know that they have culturally competent chaplains. Treatment centers, when people struggle with drugs and alcohol. I've personally toured 3 out-of-state treatment centers and got full tours of, okay, this is specific for first responders, warrior culture. And it's there, or there's a treatment center that has first responder tracks that a law enforcement officer is not going to be put into a drug rehabilitation group with somebody that potentially he busted, the month before. It's not the same, and our reasons for being on drugs sometimes are because of the job. The last thing you want is those ones that are, basically providing job security for your job, because that's not always the best therapy, is to, trying to recover from something when somebody that's in that group kind of puts you in that place, or at least from their perspective, this is why I'm here. It's because of you.
Right. Absolutely.
So a lot of networking.
So regarding the target audience for the services provided, is it? I know this is not a. There's probably quite a few answers to this, but is it generally the employee, or do you bring their family in as well? As it just kind of depend on the situation?
It totally depends on the situation. A lot of times, there is family involvement, and a lot of these stressors, definitely work is, and shift work, and then the type of work we do impacts that individual, but it 100% impacts the family. We know this. This is why the divorce rates of you go across the board in the warrior culture is much higher than the general population. Suicide is much higher than the general population, depending on what service branch you're looking at. I'll give you an example of just fire alone. Ever since they started keeping these stats, and they're not mandatory reports either. These are just ones they've been able to verify as far as members that have taken their own lives. That number has exceeded line of duty deaths ever since like 2016 or 17. And line of duty deaths is a mandated report. So they know that number. And the suicides is just what they've been able to verify. So
even with the proliferation of providers being struck on the roadway and cancer in the service, that's still the leading cause.
Yeah. And what that states is it's a pretty powerful statement, but that means that we are essentially more dangerous to ourselves than the high risk jobs that we perform.
That is a scary statement.
It is. And I was watching, there's a new Black Hawk Down documentary on Netflix, and I was watching it the other day, and one of the guys that was in Mogadishu and went through that whole skirmish in Africa, he said, and it was very passive, but I caught it because it's absolutely true. And he says that there's no training for how to deal with this afterwards. And I think those were his words. And then they cut to another statement. But what he said there was so impactful, because it's like nobody taught us how to deal with this after the fact. And this guy is, I don't know his history, but you can tell that it was it was a significant world event. And this is years after the event. And he made that statement, which means it's still heavy on his mind and his heart. And just the look on his face, he's like still trying to process it. No one teaches that stuff. They want you to stay away from it. You're a warrior. You need to be tough. You need to disassociate. You need to, as I've heard in the past numerous times, you just need to push it down. Well, I agree and I disagree, because you do need to, when you're in the heat of the battle, whether it's firefighting, whether it's doing surgery, you don't want somebody that's emotionally connected to their emotions when they're trying to do high level stuff. That you want focus, you want like task oriented individuals that are there to do the best job that they can. And usually that's somewhat cutting emotional away. But after the fact, how do you process that? And this is kind of the culture that we've bred, which in the heat of the battle is high performance. It's kicking butt and taking names, but it's doing extraordinary things, but you're still a human being. So, and you don't forget, a lot of things you don't forget. So those will come back up until you process them through some kind of strainer, emotional, psychological strainer of, okay, let's go back to that, because that was really messed up.
Yeah, absolutely. So is the network, is it limited to personnel in your emergency personnel in your state? And if so, have you become familiar with other organizations across the country that are similar to your organization that you could share?
So we never turn anybody away. If somebody calls us, comes to us, we're definitely going to, help them navigate that part of, I don't even know who to call. We've been doing this for, 5 years plus now, and we've had a lot of time to field questions, needs, wants. And if anybody calls, we usually have some form of networking process that takes place. If somebody calls from California and they're looking for, vetted resources, we usually know somebody somewhere that can help us out. I'll give you an example. Arizona. We had a member in Las Vegas that had been retired, diagnosed with cancer, and they were living in Arizona, small town Arizona. And so they called me and they're like, how do we get this guy support? He's really struggling. And I said, well, give me a minute. And I started calling peer support groups that I knew in Arizona. And it took a couple phone calls, but I got to a person that ended up calling me back and saying, yeah, I'm in this area. What town does this member live in? And I told them, and they said, we have a cancer support group for firefighters in that town. I'm like, you're kidding me. And he's like, no. He's like, give me your contact info. I'll reach out to him and I will make sure that he gets to the support group. And I'm like, that's amazing. And he's like, yeah. He's like, that's what we do. We take care of one another. And I'm like, we were able to facilitate indirectly through another member in the fire service and get that person some support.
I guess if someone is reaching out to you, the last thing you want to be is another brick wall, or to say no, that we can't help. You at least want to try to get them on the path to some type of assistance.
Yeah, and we're all built that way. We're servants, and that's what we do. When I went through the academy, I remember my drill instructor telling me that you can go to any fire department in whatever USA and walk up to a fire station and say, "Hey, I'm a firefighter in this state at this city at this station on this truck." I and you're going to be welcomed with open arms.
Right. Probably given a challenge going too.
Yeah, or something.
You go into those offices, and those walls are covered in those things. So they're very. I like them too. It just they're a neat tool to have, and it also just a little token of recognition. I guess no pun intended.
And I want to circle back to something that you said about we're willing to risk our lives for one another. I'm paraphrasing, but whether you have a firefighter down, people are lining up to go in to that same hazard zone to rescue a brother or sister. What baffles me, based on the stigma piece, is that when somebody's struggling emotionally or relationally, like with a marriage or something like that, there has been in the past, and even now, a tendency to kind of like, well, that's none of my business. But in the peer support, this is why it's so important, and it's the most powerful thing, even more so than a counselor. It's because when a brother or sister hears that, it's an opportunity to go, well, what do you tell me more, and allowing that person to either process or identifying that, oh my God, they're in a really bad, dark place. And when peer supporters are equipped with what to do and who to call, like going back to I don't know who to call. If we train our individuals within organizations, and this could be outside of the first responder culture, if we can train individuals to take care of one another, then you're going to see a huge shift in cultural health of an organization. And we just need to understand that we need to get over ourselves, and it's not always the touchy-feely person at work. Everybody knows those individuals, oh, they're touchy-feely, I don't want to talk to them. You have to vet people within your organizations that are, the guy that's covered from head to toe with tattoos and, goes to the gym all the time, and you think wouldn't have a soft spot. There are people that want to just be told how it is straight out and not be the touchy-feely, soft and gentle kind. Sometimes they need that, what the hell are you doing?
Right. A little more aggressive or assertive tone towards it.
Yeah, I need the dad voice sometimes,
For sure. You mentioned earlier, kind of going outside of and helping out, and that was a success story. Is there another success story that you would like to share about the program?
There are a lot of
or are there too many
stories.
It's hard
well,
to
no, they're not too many. It's just it's not always a frequent thing. Sometimes it comes in waves. We've gotten people. I think some of the feedback or the testimonies are, we have one individual that lost his son to suicide, and I was on duty as a battalion chief, and it was not my department. It was a different, but I knew the individual. And I was at his house less than an hour after it happened when I heard about it. And, it's a good family. It was tragic. But I made sure that the resources that were immediately needed were there at the house. And then thereafter, it was about the follow-up, because like I said, when something happens, everybody comes a running, and then 2 weeks, a month, a year later, that kind of support dwindles off. It's the follow-up that's one of the most important things. And this individual he said point blank that, and I say this with great humility, but he says that, we saved his life, because the pain was so great with losing his son, that, that he thought it easier to take his own life. And, this is the ironic thing about suicide in general, is that it's not that people want to die. It's that the pain they're experiencing is so great, they want to get away from it. And sometimes the solution of suicide is on the menu to do such a thing. So it's about being supportive and being with somebody. It's not about always providing solutions, but it's about providing presence and compassion.
That's probably about the best currency for that program that you need, is when someone makes a statement like that to you, that you got to them before something tragic. I mean, it was in response to a tragedy, but the tragedy wasn't compounded because you all were able to get to them.
Yes. Other success stories, I've had people call me when I'm on the golf course, and they say, "Hey, we have this member that he's detoxing right now. We got to get him in the treatment." And we don't know how to do that or where to send him. And I said, okay, well, number one, is he consenting to go? Is he willing to go for 60 to 90 days right now? And they're like, yes. He says he's ready. He's tired of going through this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, let me make a phone call. I make a phone call to the treatment center, that one of the ones that I told you I toured. I talked to her. I said, hey, do you have any beds? And she's like, yes. Who do you have? And I said, well, it sounds like this, and this. It is a dual diagnosis treatment center. So it's like, okay, well, we know that it's a booze problem, but we know there's something underneath that. So I call that person that's helping that member from another department back. And I said, okay, they're willing to take him. They have a bed ready. And then, I kind of step out of the role. I'm like, look, I want you to call this person. They're going to ask for a driver's license, and they're going to ask for an insurance card, and then they're going to negotiate with this insurance company, because not everything is covered 100% when you go out of network, right? But we also assist in going, okay, they're going to tell you it's going to cost us much. You need to have that treatment center work with your insurance company for a single, case, a single case agreement, so you're not overwhelmed with financing, because that's one of the pitfalls of going out of state to a legitimate treatment center, is, oh, it's out of network. So there's some navigation pieces in that. So that in itself is guiding somebody that didn't know who to call, and now you've got this strategy to get your member in within the next 24 hours out of state to a treatment center, and having somebody be an advocate for your insurance policy. So we've done that several times, not just once. So that particular time I was on the golf course was like, I'm going to miss this hole. I need to do some phone calling and making that work. And honestly, a lot of the success stories are the ones that are organic, that are proactive, that are before tragedy strikes, where somebody just needs somebody to talk to. And we have people that are passionate, that check up on people, that say, hey, I'm worried about you. How you doing? And it never gets to that point of the tragedy that the news media wants to hear about. It stays at a lower level because you have that infrastructure of peer support and understanding what it actually is and what it is not. And that's a class. It's like, it's not an enabling program. It's a proactive program. When peer support is only there for when the bomb goes off, then you've missed the target.
Yeah, we need to be proactive, not retroactive, in dealing with the peer support.
We're having a financial class at the Resiliency Center, the Nevada Peer Support Resiliency Center, next month and then the following month. It's about financial resiliency. It's about financial wellness, and we're bringing in culturally competent financial advisors that understand shift work, that understand PERS, that understand investments outside of PERS. And they're coming in and doing they're doing 2 classes. And that was their recommendation, because they said, well, we want it to span 2 different shifts. I'm like, well, you are culturally competent because you already understand our schedule. And they're going to come teach a financial literacy workshop. And then they're going to come in next month and do a class on wills and advanced directives and things like that. Because go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's a lot of moving parts. I mean, that's getting outside of mental. I mean, it's almost like lifestyle classes, or teaching you how to just be more efficient, I guess, in some of those things.
So mental health is, mental resiliency, and mental resiliency is based on relational. It's based on psychological, emotional, physical, and financial. And if that's 5 legs of a chair and you take 3 away, that individual is not going to be mentally sound. So look at it from like you talk about, physical health. You got a cardiologist, you got an endocrinologist, but if you don't have the whole health body philosophy, you're only going to be treating part of the body. But if you are, from a psychological standpoint, treating all those, pillars of resiliency, you take 3 away and now that person is having struggles. You keep all those 5 pillars in play. We did a family workshop where we had a chaplain come in that was a retired fire chief and talk about how to maintain a good marriage. That's relational, financial, that part. And then, emotional could be all different kinds of things. Breath work, it could be meditation, it can be writing workshops, it can be yoga. There's so many things on the bookshelf, and it's balancing them out and being proactive in offering those services to members that are willing. And it's a snowball. You get 5 in there. Well, you're training 5 individuals that understand and buy into the mental wellness model. And then they're advocates outside of that arena to the members that they work with, their peers.
So you've obviously developed a very robust and a great network. Where can our listeners find out more information about the peer support network and possibly support the organization?
Our website is www.nvpsn.org. We do have a Facebook page where you'll find out and see all the things that we are doing with the retiree group. That's all volunteers and doing great work for our greater alarms. You also see Wellness Wednesdays, where we have we have 1 counselor in our Resilience Center that does nature walks. We have collaboration with a breath work, a captain that works for a local fire department, and he does breath work workshops. And you'll find images and sign up sheets and flyers on the Facebook page, as well as a calendar on the website. My email is definitely wide open. Derek, DEREK .REID at nvpsn.org. Anybody can reach out if they have more questions on that. We do have a board. Our board is made up of all the different service branches represented. So we do have an equal balanced board. Hopefully that answers that question. That's a few ways to reach out to us.
Absolutely. Well, Derek, I want to thank you for taking the time to chat with me this morning. This is a great program. I think it could benefit a lot of providers for all the information that you explained about the prevalence of how mental health is impacting emergency services. So I thank you for taking the time to delve into creating this network and then sharing some information about it. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity. Everybody have a great day and be safe.
And I want to thank you for listening to the program and for your interest in VFIS safety resources. I want to thank our guest Derek Reid once again for his time and information. Please consider subscribing to our program to stay up to date on new content releases. Also, if you like what you've heard, please consider leaving a review below. For more information about the many resources available from VFIS, please visit VFIS.com. And to submit ideas for future discussions, please reach out by emailing VFIS Risk Control at VFIS.com. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. The views, information, or opinions expressed during this program are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Glatfelter Insurance Group, VFIS, and its employees. Additionally, all views, information, or opinions expressed are provided for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal, medical, or other professional advice on any subject matter.